In today's video, we're recapping the 2023 movie titled Hunger. The movie begins with Thailand's #1 chef named Paul unveiling his latest dish called lobster on stones. Chef Paul is the head of a renowned culinary team called Hunger. Apparently, the name Hunger makes sense because it seems he always manages to leave his guests feeling that way whenever they see his dishes. Some of the wealthiest people in the country are around to watch him prepare the tantalizing dish, and when it's ready, one man in particular can't help but greedily gobble down the delicacy. Elsewhere, we see a local family restaurant that serves noodles. The place is run by a girl named Aoi, who uses her family recipes passed down for generations to prepare delicious meals for the locals. While working, Aoi is approached by a man named Tone, who gives her the Hunger business card, inviting her to work for them. At the time, she's not familiar with the culinary team, so she's not too bothered by the invitation. Later, she tells her friends about it, and they're shocked that she doesn't know about Hunger. As such, they enlighten her and encourage her to grab the opportunity without hesitation. Afterward, Aoi does some research about the cooking team and finds out that the renowned Chef Paul is the leader of the team. The following day, Aoi accepts the offer, and Tone goes to pick her up. He takes her back to Chef Paul's restaurant, and she's astonished by how clean and equipped the kitchens are. As you'd expect, Aoi is made to take a test. Chef Paul matches her against one of his best cooks who also graduated from a culinary school. He asks them to prepare a fried rice meal, and the moment Aoi's opponent hears this, he's immediately convinced that he would win the contest. The two begin cooking, and from the get-go, it's clear that they both have very different styles. Aoi uses leftover ingredients and has a more natural technique, while her opponent uses fresher ingredients and has a different cooking style. After cooking, Chef Paul doesn't even need to taste the food before declaring Aoi the winner. Chef Paul officially adds her to the team, and after changing into her Hunger uniform, Tone introduces her to the rest of the team. A while later, Chef Paul walks into the kitchen and informs them that they would be invited to cook for a high-ranking officer in a few days. Their job would be to prepare a meat-themed dish. Despite being the newcomer, Chef Paul makes Aoi in charge of the dish. He asks her to cut the meat in thin slices, but since she isn't used to the fancy utensils and fresh ingredients, she finds it difficult to do so. Chef Paul gets upset and scolds her for failing after several tries. He asks her to keep practicing so she doesn't mess up and ruin her chances to become a great chef. Aoi doesn't enjoy being yelled at, so she decides to ditch the Hunger team and return to her family business. However, at the last minute, she changes her mind and returns to the kitchen, determined to keep practicing so she can perfect the recipe just like Chef Paul. Even after the others go home, Aoi stays back in the kitchen to keep practicing the beef dish. The following day, the other cooks arrive in the kitchen and are surprised to see Aoi sleeping on the floor. The burn marks on her hands are evidence of her persistence, and thankfully, it wasn't for nothing because she finally manages to cook the meat the way Chef Paul wants it. A few days later, the special event arrives, and the Hunger team handles the cooking as planned. Among the wealthy and important guests is a man named TOS, who approaches Chef Paul and reveals that he wants to sponsor the Hunger team. Aoi is then asked to prepare the special beef dish in front of the guests, and she does so impressively. The food is so tasty that the elite guests lick their plates to finish it. When TOS witnesses Aoi's amazing culinary skills, he gives her his business card asking her to contact him. After her impressive performance at the event, Chef Paul assigns Aoi to accompany Tone and help him source the best cooking ingredients around. Tone explains to her that Chef Paul is very particular about the quality of his ingredients because he believes that the best dishes are prepared with the best ingredients. The following day, Chef Paul refuses to let Appy help out with the cooking. When she complains, he asks her to wash dishes and take out the trash, but she refuses. So he decides to check her chopping speed, and she ends up cutting herself in a bid to impress him. At home, Aoi cooks one of Chef Paul's dishes for her family, but they reveal that they don't like it, claiming their family stir-fry noodles are better. The next day at the kitchen, Chef Paul walks in and finds one of the cooks named Ken smoking while cooking. He's very upset about it and makes sure to embarrass him. To make the atmosphere even more tense, Chef Paul reveals that he discovered that there is a thief among them. He states that someone stole some high-quality meat. He gives the perpetrator a chance to confess before checking the security footage, promising to call the police when he finds out by himself. As a result, one of the oldest members of the team finally admits that he stole the meat, and Chef Paul immediately fires him. Soon, the Hunger team receives another assignment. This time, they're invited to prepare a meal for a family. After cooking, Chef Paul notices that there are prawns in the soup and throws it away in anger. It turns out that the little girl in the family is allergic to prawns, and so it would be a problem if they served the soup. With very little time left, Chef Paul cooks a replacement soup using tap water and leftover ingredients, which is very unlike him. After the assignment, Chef Paul scolds the entire team for the costly mistake and finds out that the person who put the prawns in the soup was an assistant chef named Dang. Still very furious, Chef Paul scolds Dang and even physically attacks him, so Dang stabs him with a knife. Chef Paul gets hospitalized and is still very angry. Aoi later visits him and brings him some of her family's stir-fry noodles because he refused to eat the hospital food. The two have a chat, and Chef Paul reveals the reason why he became a chef. He tells Aoi a story of when he was a child. His mother was the maid of a wealthy family, and one day he saw a special food called caviar. When no one was looking, he snuck into the kitchen to have a taste but got caught. He was startled by the sun and dropped the jar of caviar, breaking in the process. The lady of the house found out and beat his mother before slashing her salary. While cleaning up the spilled caviar, he tasted it and realized that it didn't even taste nice. From that day, Paul vowed that he would make the wealthiest people crawl and beg to taste his food. Later, Aoi returns home to find out that her father has been hospitalized. She immediately blames herself for his illness because ever since she joined the Hunger team, he had to do a lot more work in their family restaurant. She visits her dad at the hospital, and there she watches the news reporting a family that committed suicide because they were in death. This same family also invited the Hunger team a few days ago and paid a hefty sum for their cooking. The whole situation baffles Aoi because she's not sure why people would be indebted and still be desperate enough to taste Chef Paul's expensive dishes. Aoi becomes even more suspicious of Chef Paul's ways when he hunts and cooks an endangered bird species. Eventually, she gets tired of his desperation, so she and Tone summon the courage to quit the team. However, she still needs money to pay her father's hospital bills, and the small family business won't provide that. Thankfully, she remembers that TOS gave her his card and she contacts him. Sure enough, he meets with her and is so eager to invest in her that he builds her a fancy restaurant to begin her career. Soon, Aoi, who is the head chef, is assigned to prepare a new and special dish. With the help of her assistant chefs, she eventually comes up with an exquisite menu. It doesn't take long before Aoi and her culinary team come into the limelight. They're soon recognized by the elites in the country, and one day, a celebrity named Milky invites them to prepare dishes at her event. When they arrive, they're matched against the Hunger culinary team. Aoi and her team called Flame begin preparing their dishes, and as you'd expect, they both have very different styles. Chef Paul and the Hunger team are extremely confident and, as usual, prepare the dishes in a manner that leaves the guests slobbering all over like gluttons. After the Hunger team's presentation, Aoi and her team begin theirs. Unlike Chef Paul's food, the guests can taste her food, can savor the food, and not gobble it down without decency. Chef Paul approaches Aoi and tells her that she can't compete with him because of the standard he's set and the expectations the guests have for his food. Suddenly, some police arrive to arrest Chef Paul. It turns out that Tone had shown them the video of Chef Paul cooking the endangered hornbill, which is a crime. TOS had put Tone up to it, and after Paul is arrested, he offers to make Aoi the new #1 celebrity chef. At this point, Aoi finally realizes that in the pursuit of fame, Paul had lost a part of himself. She also confirms that in her quest to defeat him, she sacrificed quality time with her family. After this revelation, the story ends with Aoi declining TOS' offer and deciding to leave the big stage so she can return to her small family business because she doesn't want to follow the same dark path that Chef Paul did. That's all for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. To see more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time.